and this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Insanity runs in my family. Practically gallops.
No stems, no seeds that you don't need. Acapulco Gold is.
This is the most acid I've ever seen anybody eat in my life. Wow, man.
Fire it up, Holmes!
Why don't you get a job, Spicoli?
What for?
You need money.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. And now it's time for that feral hippie herself, an infantic, esoteric, eclectic mix of the adventures of that feral hippie, Miss Mona Radler.
What are you people? On dope?
That was my skull. I'm so wasted.
Make a move and the money gets it.
Dave's not here.
All right, Mona, it's all yours. Take it away.
Take it away. Welcome. We're here at freedomslips.com. Radio and Maggie. Okay, what's going on?
Yeah, it sounds pretty weird, huh?
Well, no, it's the Skype. It's the computer. It's the Mars Mercury that was retrograde. Well, Mars goes direct Monday. But anyway, here we are. We are listener supported, so don't forget to go donate because we're like 500 short. So please do us that favor, hook us up. And if you go to the home pages and click on the ads, follow a couple of procedures, we will end up with some change in our pocket. So please help us out, hook us up. It's almost the end of the month. Today's the 24th of August. I didn't think we'd make it here. And don't forget archives and the heirloom seed packs. Fall planting is coming. All right, Bridgette. I have to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you're carrying those stones and digging holes, are you putting those stones in those holes to make a smoother path?
Well, it depends.
Okay. Depends on what?
It depends on the day. Some days all I do is carry stones, and then some days all I do is dig holes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to find out if you were feeling, because this is a big moon coming up, and if you're seeing more changes in the 3D than what you've been witnessing for quite some time.
Well, I think we're moving towards the apex. I'm not sure exactly what the apex is going to be. And one of the things that it's hard for me to see what's kind of floating right now out in the group consciousness, because there's been so many like really different things that are happening to me, like personally, that are I'm pretty sure that they're my star family related. Okay. And so there's a lot of focus in on that. And I'm in Oregon. I was going to go and visit Lenny for a while, and that didn't quite work out. And so then I continued north through Oregon. So I live in Reno. And so then I got to go see my uncle. I found out lived in Northern Oregon. So I went on to see him, and I haven't seen him in 25 years.
Oh,
so,
that's sweet.
Yes, and it's really good because he was a major component when I was growing up, and really took me out into nature, really looked after me, made sure I was safe, taught me like outdoor skills, like, how to frog gig, hunt frogs, because we were mountain people.
Right.
So there's one of my favorite stories I'll tell you real quick about when I was young. We used to go fishing as a family. All of us were really poor in the family, but we would get together 2 times a year just to go outdoors, and we would go camping places, and we were a big fisher family. Really liked river fishing. I mean, that's my favorite. I'm a mountain river girl, and so is my uncle. He's a mountain river guy. So we were camping at a place, the Walker River, that's kind of close to Bridgeport. And back then the river was really lush, big trees, beautiful campgrounds. And then the flood in 97 wiped it all out. It's like mostly boulders now. I'm sure the fishing's probably still good. But so when I was little, he would help me put the fishing pole together. And the great thing about it is we were quiet. When we were together, we were quiet because we're always doing something like rafting down a river, fishing, all different kinds of fish. I'd spend my summers, with him and my family. So I always look forward to being outside all the time, barefoot and nappy-haired.
That's right.
And and so my favorite memory is
today, isn't it, Bridget?
What's that?
Isn't that how we are today?
Yeah. Wild and nappy. No.
Annie, I tell you what, no sense in wasting time if you got better things to do, right?
Right. So anyway, so we were camping on the Walker River, the family, and then my uncle's like wants to go fishing the river. And so what we would do, this is how we would do it. So he would take me with him, and I was like, maybe 6 years old. And he'd help me outfit my pole. He had his pole. And then I would hold on to him, and cast my reel and stuff in the river. Some places I could stand by myself and in the river and fish. And then on the areas I had to hold on to him, like his belt loops and stuff. And then sometimes it gets so deep, because he was like 6'5". It gets so deep that he'd actually grab me by the tuft of my hair and basically put me on his shoulders. And him and I would be fishing in different directions on the river. Well, and it was always quiet and silent. And I just grew up never afraid of water, even heights. I just had a killer relationship with nature. So, now that he's aging and his mind is slowing down, he's starting to remember a lot of that stuff from the past. So seeing him 25 years later and being able to talk about things and talk about other parts of the family that, I don't know about, and things that happened on my end of the family that he didn't know about, and then putting it all together. So it's the, for me, there's been a lot of reconnection to the past, how the energy's been affecting me. And like, it's like almost like I get to go back and choices that I made, during those periods where I lost contact with my family. So I went out into I really built a big practice, and I worked a lot as a traditional osteopath in Reno. I'd work like 6 days a week, see 6 people a day, which was a lot. So I really, when I was working on my success, I really lost contact with things that are important. And there was interesting I was sitting on the couch listening to my uncle talk, and I thought, this was a really cool dude, and I really messed up by, choosing, to be more successful and have more money, and that being, the importance of kind of losing contact with him.
But isn't that when you ended up with your cancer?
It is. It is. When I was really
correlation, huh?
Yeah, I had so much stress trying to, have a busy practice. I was doing a lot of consulting. I was helping people build the alternative medical center in the Caribbean, and I worked a lot. I probably worked, a good 15 hours a day.
But, Bridgette, you were trying honestly to help serve the community. You really thought that was the game plan, and that's what we've all been taught, is to give ourselves away to the point where we don't have anything left for ourselves.
Yeah. And, having brain cancer, because when I knew something was wrong for about probably a year. And then when I found out that I had brain cancer, I started having, traditional stuff like blackouts. That's how most people that have brain tumors and cancer find out, is they'll be driving down the road and they'll have a blackout and crash, or, they'll have a blackout, looks like a fainting thing, or migraines. These migraines that we get with brain cancer are just unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't actually, even after my brain cancer was gone, it took like 6 years for me to be able to go out in sunlight, because the light really affected me, Like, I still don't go to movie theaters at all because it's just way too much for my brain. So my brain changed a lot during that period, and, probably better in the long run, but there are just a lot of choices that I have to make. So I think, like a lot of the energy that's going on right now, it's kind of the focus that I see is, what choices are we making? We're being given lots of sets of choices. And I think, people should really start looking at and choosing the choices that give a sense of safety, a little bit of maybe a little nostalgia.
All right, I want to bring something up here.
What?
Well, I listen to Cosmic Reality Radio, and I have for years, and it's rather interesting during a time that they were bringing up contracts, that we don't realize that when we make a contract, we've programmed it into our physical, etherical, and spiritual systems, right? So I think what you're really also saying is, during your visit with your uncle, you found the fortification of the contracts that you made in yourself, and then when you're the ones that you have to release. But it's not just choices; it's ways that we've let our emotions guide our programming, and we never have been taught about emotions. And until we can recognize to face ourselves and how we feel, why we feel, who we feel, is one of the ways to help release ourselves so we don't end up in that quagmire. And it's not always easy, because a contract to me could be something that I didn't even recognize that I said because we talk without thinking so many times,
Right. Well, the one thing I really like is I like the word agreement better.
Okay.
And I really like, the 4 agreements, Miguel Ruiz's work, he's a Toltec shaman, old family line. But I like that he talks about it in agreement. So you may not know what the contract is, but you've made an agreement with it by lending it your energy or lending it your emotion, positive or negative. That puts you in an agreement with something. But this other side of it, there may be agreements that you like,
Oh yeah.
there may be contracts or whatever, that you like. But you can always unmake your agreement without a lot of effort. You can just all of a sudden one day notice something that, you know, you don't like in your life, and you can just say, look, I'm breaking that agreement with that. You know, I'm not going, and then you get back into Carolyn Neese's work, you know, I'm not going to feed it energy.
Well, I did that with sugar. I did that with sugar. And to me, it's just a reprogramming of what is best for me.
Yeah.
So everybody can do that. If you and I can do that, Bridgette, then everybody else can do it too.
Yeah, and the thing is sometimes you just need to make a new choice about something. Because, you know, the thing is people get, this is where I think people get stuck, is when something is repetitive for a long period of time. And, you know, there are parts of me that wish, you know, like I had family that had land and they still lived in the same places, and, you know, I could go back and revisit that. But on the same token, it's not really healthy for people to stay in the same house, you know, like their entire life, or at the same job, because that's where it gets really stuck. You get really stuck in those places because it's repetitive every day. So it just becomes, you know, how you float along. And then what happens is you get used to that, and then you move into a new environment, and people really start to stress out in the new environment. They don't really like the new environment because they couldn't mindlessly just get up, go to work, you know, make your coffee at the same spot on the counter for, you know, 40 years.
Oh,
you know, drink your coffee, go to work. Oh. And then, you know, you're like on autopilot all the way there. You know, in my practice, I have a thing where when I start getting new people in, you know, one of the things I might ask them to do as a practice is to notice, you know, when they're driving from one place to another, notice how many lights were green and how many lights are red. And people will report back to me that, you know, they don't even really, normally they wouldn't even notice.
Ah!
You know?
Oh, no,
they wouldn't even be aware enough to notice, right? So once they start counting them, it starts to kind of make them connect back with their kind of environment, right? And kind of notice what's going on. So, you know, we really go to sleep and we really get into a deep hypnotic state.
Right.
When, you know, we're doing the same thing that's repetitive over and over and over again. And this is like, so this is a really great word. My friend Ryan, who came to me, he was on my show a couple weeks ago. I finally got him to come on, but he kind of showed up so I could kind of work with him and teach him, because he had done some ayahuasca, and he ended up in a bad reality where he came back with demonic being.
Oh,
so yeah, so we worked together for about 6 years. I finally got him on my show, but he used this really great definition of what happens to us, and he called it the assembled, or assembling a construct, your reality here. And it was weird because as soon as he said it, I was like thrown over into images of how they give, you know, kids things like, you know, they give them Legos, and they give them those little circles with those long sticks that go in them. They give them these boxes, and they give them all this stuff. Like, this is like the early, you know, development. Put the star. The star doesn't go in the square hole. Oh yeah, the star goes in the star hole. In these toys, and how they create it's like such a solidity in the physical world with these building blocks that it's like that becomes the basis of our assembled construct, right? And so we have to go back to like the earliest point in time to like sometimes look at how this reality formed our assembled construct into more of a solid way.
Right.
So that's I've really been messing around with that word, assembling construct, assembled construct. So anyway, there's a cool thing that I've been working on. I have a lot of people, not a lot, but I have some new people that I'm working with online. And so I'm kind of, because of this whole conversation, you know, that Ryan and I had on my show, I've moved out, and so I'm teaching them how to assemble construct on energetic layers to support the construct that they want here. And in some cases, like even building it, like, one of my clients right now, he's like in construction. So I'm having him, write down a list of tools that he's going to need. So you got to do it on the physical and, and we call it the awake dream or the night dream. And so if you want things to really change, you have to do it on both levels because you have to use both sides of your brain to create it. Okay. So, and then what you're going to build in your dream, in your meditation in the energy field, and then start building it until it's completely, constructed. Go in every day and check on it until, it's completed and finished. So one of my clients is going to build, he's always like, he needs money, because he's like a lot of us that are in the spiritual, we're struggling a little bit financially. And so I said, hey, build a bank in there in your energetic field. And I said, take whatever you want and have places you put your emeralds and, places you put all the stuff in your vault. And then, that helps manifest it more kind of on the physical plane. And that's like a shamanism perspective.
Right.
So anyway, it was just kind of like, it's cool.
Reprogramming. That's a smart idea.
Yeah. And it's fun because it's not such, intense spiritual work, but it kind of, gives people the building blocks to start changing what's in this reality by changing what's in their energy reality or their dreaming reality.
Right. And you mean dream as in vision, right? Envisioning?
Or no, I mean dream.
Sleep dream.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I call, all of the dimensions, I guess, or whatever, I call them dreaming worlds. And then there's dreaming worlds outside of these dreaming worlds. And so it's I guess it's a shamanism type perspective, like really, really traditional shamanism, that everything's a dream, right? And we're just going through one dream to another. Even asleep is a dream, waking up is a dream, and then how to navigate that with practices. Right. And those practices were in the book, if people want to learn more of those dreaming practices, I would highly recommend The Art of Dreaming by Carlo Castaneda.
Yeah, that was a good one. So, Robert Monroe's really good, though, too.
Yeah. So, anyway, then you can go to the fourth attention, and that's kind of the place where you're awake in all the worlds. Even if you are asleep in your bed, you're still awake in that, and present in all of those places that you travel, instead of your dreaming world getting a hold of you and kind of tossing in you here and there. You can actually navigate it like you're awake during the day. And then during the day, you learn how to like cross over some of the night dreaming medicine into the day. And then that helps to add a little bit more magic to the solid, technical world. Right. And it helps be able to navigate it a little bit. I mean, there are books that I've read where, this girl met this, shaman, or in South America, they call them sorcerers, the same thing as a shaman. And the old way, the old traditions. And she met this lady who's traditional sorcerer, and she said, hey, you want to come study with me and come out to my land or whatever? And she said, yeah, I would love to. So she ended up going on this journey with this lady to like the middle of, like a desert kind of a thing. And then they walked, they parked and walked way off the main road, and they came to this house and all this other stuff. Well, afterwards, she found out that the house couldn't be seen by average people because it was a construct that three, sorcerers came together, or shamans, and they created. So they had like a roof over their head. But it was, in the energy field outside of what most people can see in the 3D.
Right.
Anyway, so she talks about that experience, and everything that happened during that time frame. But I think that's kind of a cool thing that you can actually, that would be something to be able to energetically construct, the house that you want and be able to live in it and cook in the kitchen and everything. Meanwhile, nobody can see it. They can't even sense it if you're in it.
Right. That's great camouflage.
Well, then you wouldn't need to buy a house. You wouldn't need to do a lot of stuff. And then you imagine, your garden outside, and you can, harvest all the food that you need to cook in your invisible house and in the invisible. Well, I mean, you would see it all. She said in the book that it was all physical.
Well, that's how it was in The Stand too. Stephen King's movie, The Stand. Anyway,
I haven't seen that before.
Oh, it's an Armageddon kind of thing. It was well before its time, but it makes too much sense. Anyway, what was I going to say? Have you ever heard of the author Mary Summer Rain?
Yep, I used to have all of her books.
Okay, so you know the Mary Summer Rain, the No Eyes, and the other things like that.
Yep.
Those are my favorite. I used to buy them and pass them out to young people. Same with the Carlos series.
Yeah. No, I've tried to Facebook Mary Summer Rain on Messenger to try to, get her to come on my show, but so far I had no response.
Yeah, I've had a lot of that over the years too. And that's okay. She actually was born on my daughter's birthday. Or my daughter was born on her birthday. So
well, and I think sometimes, after you've kind of been out there in the public for a while, there's a period where you need to really go back in and do some, healing work yourself. And sometimes you have to, even Lynn Andrews, distanced herself from the public for a really long time.
What the
well,
and now she's just been starting
training that people are thinking you're some bigger messiah than you are, and they drain your energy. I've had so many psychics and teachers like that say that too. You got to have your alone time, but the box time,
The greater jihad is the struggle to be a better person, while the lesser jihad is the struggle to defend the community.
But anyway, I think it's kind of an interesting time energetically.
Jihad is a word of truth.
I think
in the face of a tyrant.
I think people just really need to stay calm.
Right. Every Friday,
and stock up on food, stock up on water.
I didn't get to hear the break, so we're on break. So we're going to go till at least 2:30 or 2:31. I'll be right back.
Alert, listen up now. Tune into Crypto Corner with Crypto 0XE09173. We talk about decentralization and then annihilation. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Litecoin, your coin, blockchain, baby. Mondays at 1600 hours Eastern Studio A.
Find some comfort at Willow's World. A variety of news, commentary and poetry at Willow's Poetry Corner, where there are comfy cushions and a tempting selection of delectable comestibles. A show that's quirkily and quintessentially British, with a unique twist featuring Willow Andreasen, your host. Join Willow Mondays and Thursdays 2 till 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Studio A.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Alrighty then, let's see if we're back.
Let's see.
Well, I do the jacker thing. Yep, we were quiet for a minute. The Skype is just, I'm not getting everything the way it should be gotten, but that's okay. I've learned to have patience and to tolerate all the indifferences. Just like when the mic gets muted and I didn't touch the button kind of thing. It's so fun how stuff works out sometimes.
All righty.
Yeah, we're back.
We're back.
Oh, it's so pathetic that we have so much that we've been not told when we could all have our peace of mind, heart, and spirit. And then people don't even recognize there's those three bodies. Are you with
that's why they call it the 3D, the Trinity. What else is in threes? The martyr. 33-6, the biggest martyr. You know, so.
What do you mean 33-6?
Yeah, is the ultimate. Well, you know, they say that a lot of people who, you know, that incarnated in here that did, you know, acts of ultimate martyr, like Jesus and things like that, people like that usually are like a 33-6, a 33 numerology path. So, you know, it's always in like a, you know, the 3D and everything that relates to 3.
Well, it's not a bad thing.
No, but, you know, the thing about 3 is communication is one of the components. And if you don't communicate enough, then things don't go really good in this reality.
Well, you'd have to be clarified. Be able to communicate and clarify it to a degree. Because there's a lot of different levels of where people have been taught that language is. And you know how adulterated it's become.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're a confused lot. But that, looking at the streetlight thing is interesting. Now, when we had to go to break that I couldn't hear because I wasn't watching or paying attention as I should be. You were talking about survival in that? Do you remember what you were talking about?
Oh, yeah. People should really be stockpiling food right now and getting some emergency meals. And, you know, I would try to stockpile enough food. I mean, at least for 30 days for everybody in your house. And like I have oatmeal and beans and, and grains, and I have a lot of that kind of stuff. And the good thing about, like, if you get non-GMO, beans and grains and stuff like that, you can also sprout them so you can have food like right away. And it takes very little water to sprout them. Or you can grow them on land, or, you can soak them and eat them. So seeds and grains and beans are good stuff. And then also water, I think people should stockpile water. And then this is the other thing, is get yourself a little cheap camp stove with lots of fuels. And then just in case, and if you live like in an apartment or a condo, you sure as heck are not going to want to go downstairs or outside that building. So you can go to Home Depot and get yourself a 5-gallon bucket with the lid, and also get yourself a bag of sawdust. Then that way, if you need to take a poop, you can take a poop in the bucket and then put the sawdust over it, and then leave it out on like the porch.
Right.
Because, if you get stuck in there, where sanitation becomes like the number one. If something goes down, sanitation is the number one thing. So you want a lot of wet wipes, antibacterial stuff, and, a place to poop.
Commercial brands here.
Yeah, no. So, people may need those things. I think it's getting ready the financial system in the U.S. is like days away from total collapse. So I think, people, should start rushing out and getting stuff that they're going to be able to survive. Because it may be like you wake up and you don't have time to go to the store because there's major people that just totally freak out. I think, what was it in 2017? They did like this thing where they, in some states, they didn't get people like their food stamps or something like that.
Right.
They were going to try to cancel them completely across the U.S. And so some people in states didn't get them on the day that they were supposed to get them, and it neither like 5 days after, and people totally freaked out, and people totally lost it. So they realized that they would have to keep, the welfare and the food stamps going as a part of, the bare bones government. So, the thing is like they know exactly what's going to happen, if people don't have food stamps, and, nobody grows food. I left Reno. I always look to see if there's food growing anywhere.
Right.
And even though I came up the I-5 and there's tons of huge farms, there's nothing. And there's nothing in the ground. No, I mean, there's not even that. There's nothing. I mean, it's like tilled over dirt, but there's like nothing planted at all in any of those fields. So I didn't see any food being. I saw some cattle.
I mean, that's the bread basket, cattle. Isn't it? Isn't that
well? I think here I don't know where the bread basket is in Oregon, but the thing is like if you have those big farms and there's no food being grown, then there's no food going to market. So that's just it's not a good sign.
Well, how'd you deal with any fires that were going on?
Oh, there's, in Reno, I've had fires for 2 months before I even left. I mean, and the smoke has been so thick sometimes out there in the desert that, I can't even see across the road.
Whoa.
Yeah, so we had that for 2 months, and then I've been on the road, I don't know, 2 weeks or something maybe. And, there's been tons of smoke. Today's the first day in like 2.5 months that there's no smoke where I'm at. And so everywhere I've been traveling, there's smoke everywhere. And you know what? This is the thing. Okay. So early on, I started watching all these videos, on that they think it's a type of electronic fire from the 5G. And so think about it. All these fires have started about the same time that they've flipped some of the 5G systems. I mean, okay, so California, the whole northern part went 5G in May this year. And so I don't know, the South, I think, was right after that. So basically, the state of California is one of the states that has 100% 5G across it. And look, it has, 25, 26 fires?
Oh, gosh.
And there isn't 5G everywhere in Oregon. I mean, a friend of mine just got a letter in Oregon that they're notifying them that they're just putting in the smart meters.
Yeah, we have one on that.
Some places are further behind than others, with the 5G. But I believe that the 5G is, they can use it as a weapon.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a scary thing, but people should know about this. So about 10 years ago, because I've had my YouTube channel since 2008. I mean, I had one video on there that a friend of mine did, and we did like a resume video. They had a little production company. And they built me my YouTube channel. So I've had it since like 2008, I think. So this was probably, it was like close to 10 years. Anyway, I didn't know how YouTube worked back then, but somebody sent me this video, like some kind of whistleblower underground person from YouTube. And anyway, so this is what it was. It was an anime. Basically, they said, this was going to be the future, and that was it. And I didn't really know who it was sent from. When I went back to try to find it again on YouTube, it's gone. It was probably removed a long time ago. But basically, it shows this huge, what I know to be a cell phone tower now. I wasn't sure what it was in the video like 10 years ago. And it was a giant one. It had all these, like 5G cell phone. Each one of those little things hanging on it is one unit from one company. And so it isn't like one cell phone tower, sending out one cell phone signal. It's, however many's on there, all sending out signals on their network. So if there's like 25 or 30 on that tower, then there's 20 or 30 companies sending out signals. So people have to realize like that amplifies it by, 800 million %. So when the company, sells people to put in one of these towers and they kind of make it sound like it's just one signal, it's safe. It's not. It's like 30 signals can be going on. I mean, I've seen some that have 50 hanging off of them. And
seen your video.
The other thing too that really stressed me out was that in Sacramento, I was down there before 5G went up. I was going by all these water towers down there because we were kind of going through farming area. And they would have like, I don't know, maybe 100, 5G. And you could see it from the road. You could see the 5G units like strapped to the water towers. And I'm thinking one of the worst things that you can do with microwave radiation frequency is use it on the water, in a water tower going into the public water system. So everyone has probably seen on Facebook or whatever else, those little things that kids do, the experiments where they grow, a squash plant. Right. They got 2 squash plants, same seeds in different cups with, same soil and everything. And one, they use public water through the sink to water the squash plant. And the other one, they microwave the water every day and then water the plant. And the plant that gets the microwave from the microwave oven dies rapidly and will not grow back. So that's what this microwave energy is doing to us as a living being. So you start strapping it on the water system, the public water system. Everyone has a water tower. If you're in the public water system, your water's coming from a water tower somewhere for the most part. So they're strapping all the water towers all over the West Coast so far that I've seen. I even saw some here in Salem, Oregon. When I was going through there, I saw the tower strapped with 5G. And so that's what's going to happen to us is they're going to be able to kill us kind of instantly. You know what I mean? People start drinking this water. They start bathing in it. And, I'm not sure, even Berkey, I don't know if it gets rid of radioactive material or microwave radiation because it's a wave. So, but it's deadly. It's deadly to anything living. But so people are drinking this water. They're bathing in it. They're cooking with it. Like in California, and it like totally horrifies me. I mean, I'm so weird now. Like I will not drink any water unless it comes from under the ground. Wow. So every time I see, I make a stop, I have 2 big containers and I see well water. I'm like, hey, can I fill up? Because I won't even get purified water or bottled water. I'm not drinking out of anyone's sink. Yeah, it has to be well water because I'm the cat. Oh, so they have this crazy cat. This cat, at my uncle's house. This cat is so, the cat is, oh my God. It just got onto the van because I'm in my van at my aunt and uncle's doing my radio show, just so I don't bother them, Right. And their cat, Inky, this cat crawled up onto the van, got on the roof, and since we weren't paying attention to her because I'm inside the van, she goes out onto, and I have a van, so it has those big kind of mirrors, She goes out onto the mirror so she can look me in the eye like, hi, let me in there, kind of a thing. And then she kind of falls off, catches herself on the mirror, and is hanging there and then finally drops to the ground. And she's like meowing at me the whole time, like, let me in there. Aww. But I can't let her inside the van because Jin's in here. And though they get along really good in the house, my dog, if the cat came into the van, it would be fur flying.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Well, that's fun.
Jin, yeah. So we have to be really careful about what they're doing right now with the 5G and our water system. It's super dangerous. So I think, we're at the end of everything kind of holding together. I really feel it. I'm not freaked out about the whole thing. I mean, obviously, like I'm on the road. I know at any time, that things could go, down and I wouldn't be able to get gas.
It's a good day to die.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's all good. not worrying. And it's another thing too that I've been really noticing is I have more people making appointments for alternative medicine, and that's kind of been a good thing, that there's kind of more people waking up and kind of stepping away from the medical system, and at least they're starting to ask some questions. So I think that there are people kind of waking up. I think that their health is getting worse because of all the stuff in our environment. But now they're starting to kind of, want to get their health back and change their life and maybe move in a different direction.
So you don't feel it's too late?
What's that?
You don't feel it's too late?
Well, I mean, I don't know. My teacher...
Yeah, you always got to put out some kind of good effort. Yeah, I agree.
Well, the thing is, the key is always to be prepared. If you've got like a little 30-day food storage and for your animals and yourself, and you've got all kinds of stored water, and you got to poop, like a makeshift pooper and stuff like that. I mean, you're going to be way less worried if you're locked up.
Right.
Apartment or your house. So, I mean, that takes a lot of the emotional stress out of the whole thing. But my teacher, Bobido, just always said that... it will be what it'll be, or it's gonna, whatever happens is gonna happen. So that's kind of like, more and more I'm able to work with that on just seeing what shows up and then, figuring out what to do about it instead of, worrying about it.
So what do you have in your first aid kit?
Oh, I got all kinds of herbal medicines. Like, I got all kinds of stuff. I've even got colloidal silver. I've got iodine. I've got, I picked up some other plant medicines. Yesterday, I picked up some yarrow. I just went walking, up the road. Found all kinds of stuff out there. I have something for everything. And I have plenty of food. And even if I, break down and have to pull off into a forest because society gets a little bonkers, and got enough water, and, so, yeah. So just on a trip while everything's, completely collapsing. And it's, the thing that makes me the grouchiest about the whole thing is that they're not even telling people, they're not even like remotely, talking to people about, the whole money system. And I really love the X22 report. I love that guy. And he does his 2 shows a day without fail. I mean, that guy is committed. But they're able to prove that the Swiss are actually using their money to buy up all of the major company stock on our stock exchange. And this is what's holding our stock exchange up. Well, there's only going to be so much money that they can spend to buy stock in American companies to hold the economy up.
Right.
And it's not really holding the economy up. It's more of a sham.
True.
It's making companies worth a lot more, right, without doing anything. So, we know that's happening. So we know that there's just a lot of stuff, The battle, you know what? It's like the last movie in the Lord of the Rings. What was it called? The Return of the King or something? And they're battling for Middle Earth. And that's where we're at right now. Except for people don't even know it.
Right.
People don't even know that we're like getting ready for the big clash. Yeah.
Well, that is rather interesting. Because... there's people that I knew in Mexico I haven't heard from in a year. And I should have heard from them because it was almost a daily situation. And a lot of people are just not able to do what we once did. And it is, I believe you. I've been feeling about the time to be prepared also. And get my camping equipment close to me just in case. And other stuff like that. Because I'm still scattered from this last move. I'm still working on that. So
yeah, and you should always have a go bag. And a friend of mine, Matt Stein, He has 2 really great books that he spent 7 years talking to experts, and he wrote. He graduated from MIT, and he does a lot of the prepper conferences, but he talks usually about water purifiers and different levels that you prepare for. But your go bag, your backpack should have, all kinds of stuff in it for medical and alternative, and a handheld colloidal silver maker, and all these different things. But you can go, you could look up his book. It's called When Technology Fails. And it has unbelievable information in it. So, it teaches you how to make bug out bags, and, how to prepare at your house for a lot of stuff, and go from there. But, people probably could buy, or you could look online how to make a bug out bag. And bug out bag means, it's your backpack that you have all your stuff in it, maybe a water purifier and some food, dried food and stuff, so that you can kind of go out away from town and maybe wait out whatever's going on. Because, think about this. People wake up one morning soon and they are not going to have a pension anymore. Okay, so when the U.S. dollar collapses, that's collapse. It means that the U.S. dollar is worth zero. To anyone in the world, it's zero. So it could be a while before a new currency is implemented. It could be a while before you even have access to go to your bank or get anything out of your bank. And you might not get your food stamps. You might not get your welfare. You might not get, anything.
Right.
And so you want to make sure that at least you can cover your food and water, especially for your animals. You want to make sure, if you have kitties, you want to make sure and have lots of kitty litter, just so you can replace it in case, you're not going to be able to go out for a while. So, but, the thing is like every country, I have friends from Europe and they always tell me, oh, but America is a young country. And, it's true. And, every 200, maybe years, most currencies collapse, that are based on fault systems. Right. So it's not like it's unusual. We're a little over 200 years. So, we're going to go through a currency collapse because, it wasn't created, the economic system wasn't created on any kind of stability. Yeah. So we're just going through processes that other countries have gone through over and over and over again. And I have a lot of friends who were Russian and who fled Russia in the 90s because of the, currency collapse that happened there. And a lot of them, were scientists, really smart people. And they, they had to flee. And there was a clampdown. This is another thing, too. One of the things that was pretty, I think intensified the whole Russian experience is when the currency was collapsing, a lot of the people were trying to get out, scientists and doctors and different people. They were trying to get jobs in other countries to get out, or utilizing whatever resources or, gold, silver, whatever else that they had. And contacts in other countries to get out immediately, because they were trying to save off the, impact in their lives and their families. So, but then what Russia did was Russia created a law all of a sudden that said you would have to apply for a visa to leave Russia. So if you were in Russia, you would actually have to apply to the Russian government to get a visa just to even consider leaving the country, because people were taking all of their hard assets with them. Right. They were taking all their silver and gold and diamonds and anything that they had stashed with them out of the country. So then on top of the currency collapsing, all of the solid wealth was also leaving, and so they had to keep people in the country. So people that didn't make it, and they had, on average, in some places they would have stores, and they would have, because Russia allowed themselves to be part of the NAFTA, free trade. So they were forced to take commodities or not take commodities because their currency wasn't worth anything. So, a huge amount of the food was no longer being shipped in Russia because their money wasn't worth anything. So, like, people were starving because there was no food being brought in. And the same thing applies in the United States. 99% of all the food in the U.S. that you buy is actually grown outside of the country. So if we had an economic collapse, we're not going to be getting food into the country. It's not going to happen until we have another, currency. But this taught Russia a lot because now they're like the number one, heirloom organic, wheat producers in the world. And so what happened after all of that is that they rebuilt their economy based, a huge percentage of their economy is based on agriculture. And they banned all GMOs and everything, I think in 2014.
And then you allow microwaves.
Yeah, so they're encouraging all their people to grow food and put it out onto the public market, so you can make pickles and stuff like that and take them to the marketplace, So,
listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this message.
We'll be back in a few. Oh, look, we can almost even hear it. Oh.
The Secret Society Revealed. With your host, Joseph Atwell, author of Caesar's Messiah, The Roman Conspiracy to Invent Jesus, and Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, the groundbreaking discoveries that gives us a new understanding of how governments and elites use mind control to manipulate their subjects. Join Mr. Atwell as he lifts the veils of deceptions of our modern world. Mondays, 12 noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time on Revolution Radio.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
All right, Bridget, if you got headphones on, take them off real quick.
Okay.
Welcome back. We're here at freedomslips.com, revolution.radio, and Haggy Shack. Don't forget we're listener supported. We're like 500 down from goal. So please, everybody go to the homepage right now and donate $10. Everybody who's listening to this show should be donating $10. I did, so why not everybody else? Anyway, we are listener supported, and we also have the archives, which help support all kinds of shows here, like Bridgette's and mine and all kinds of other ones. that you might want to go back and listen to. So Archives is really one of your best than any kind of newspaper or anything else out there ever. And then we have the heirloom seed packs, and that should be part of your survival kit too, because we're all in our own way a Johnny Appleseed. But what if you grow beans? What if you have lettuce? And I mean, right now, Bridgette, I am so excited to see the plants that I got to plant, and then I'm crossing and loving them to set seed for next year.
Woo woo! Hey, and don't forget, there's advertising banners now on Revolution Radio that are affordable. And that's one of the ways I'm supporting Revolution Radio is I have a banner now.
Uh-huh. That's cool.
Advertising. Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Oh, I would be too.
Yeah, I want people to grow food out there for sure.
Even if it's in containers. People just don't have, I mean, my ginkgos are in containers. I'm not planting them because I don't have my land, you know. But for the mints and the sages and other stuff like that, the ones that you know you can get cuttings off of or root divisions. My lamb's ear might be coming back. I'm so excited. Have you ever heard of lamb's ear?
Yes.
One of my most favorite plants ever. In Florida, the leaves grew the size or bigger than like 2 of the collards put together. They were huge. I love them. It's a great story of why lamb's ear should be growing in freely everywhere, because during the Civil War, they knew to take that in the wild comfrey and patch it around the amputations and that, because that's how our soldiers ended up living instead of dying from all kinds of other conditions. So nature does. But
the one thing about, I mean, you know, in places where like the South and stuff, and because and the other thing too is some herbal medicines, in order to be really, really good, like one of the things is comfrey. Needs a drop of 15-foot root. So comfrey is not a thing like that I can really grow in Nevada really well, because, you know, it can't ever really get its root, you know, past 3 feet. So sometimes people, in order to grow really good stuff, you know, you got to move to a place that actually has soil.
Well, mine's been in a container for 4 years, and it's happy as all get out. It even winters over well. My comfrey.
Hey, what's your guys' weather like over there?
We've been very blessed. It was actually 55 this morning. Yesterday morning. It's getting hotter now. But I live over 2,500 feet above sea level, and I'm surrounded by trees. And even though there's neighbors not too far away, I could throw a rock at them, maybe a long rock. But anyway, I'm on 2 acres of just beauty, birds everywhere, creatures. We have raccoon prints on the patio now. Cats, there's like 5 cats, 2 dogs, a goose. So we're not a farm or anything, but we care about the wildlife. The hummingbirds are amazing. It's just been great. We've had enough rain and we've had enough sunshine. Now, today was chemtrail day, but not too many people around here even recognize what a chemtrail is. So, in the house, it's we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people upstairs and 2 apartments downstairs. So there's quite a few people here. But it's like walking into a place where nobody knows what I know. You should have seen the day the guy came with trying to swipe out the smart meters. Everybody was freaking because I was like jumping up and down like an Oz monkey. No, you can't do that. Don't do that. Don't. I gave him the whole spiel, gave him a Shungite business card and said, check it out. You don't want this hanging around you. You shouldn't even be applying these meters to the houses. Could you imagine that jolt? Just that each application of a new meter would do?
I lived in an apartment building where there's 250 smart meters inside in a room for every.
Oh my gosh!
And people are going blind. They have brain tumors. Like, you can't sleep. Within a friend of mine and his cats, within I don't know, 6 months of him moving into this building, his cat got this crazy giant tumor on her eye, and is now blind. But I mean, that was from the smart meters. And the other thing too is I think people get so sick because their inflammation, the blood starts to really thicken, and so it doesn't hold oxygen or anything anymore, and you get to where you can't even really think, because you're kind of having low-level brain damage.
Yeah, let alone get up and want to do anything, right?
Or be able to think about what's going on. I mean, people, and it causes, I think one smart meter within a certain area, like on a 3-bedroom house, causes retinal degeneration. Like, so if you're already have vision problems and they put on a smart meter, your vision problems take a massive turn for the worst.
Oh. But why are you allowing it?
Well, because the thing is the population is so uneducated about all the things that they're doing. Right. I mean, they're telling people put one of these 5G things on top of your roof. Oh, it's free. We offer it for free, and you're going to have way better service. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll put it up there.
Yeah,
free. Oh, free. I'll have that. I'll have that up there for free. So the thing is it's the way that they've learned how to communicate to the average population. Yeah, and this is another problem because we're slaves. We are slave from birth. Our birth certificates. They don't have to inform us legally, and we're not holding them accountably. To inform us. Right. So the thing is that they don't have to inform us because we're not really considered real humans. We're considered monster by the legal system. That's the legal term.
The corporations are more alive than we are, right?
Yeah, and doctors all work for some corporation. I mean, the fact that they have to be kind of licensed and bonded and carry, malpractice insurance, tells you the level of, their corruption and what they're involved in. So the cat's crawled back up on the van now, and she's on the roof, and she's looking down with her face from the roof into the window here. She's the craziest cat I've ever met.
Yeah, what color is she?
Jet black.
That's what I thought. Okay.
She's a handful. Can I just tell you?
Yeah, but kitties
anyway, yeah, we're being stalked in my van by Inky, the black cat.
Well, where's Binky, the white cat?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so funny. Anyway, is there anything exciting going on? Well, let's see. I was gonna see if I
Well, what did you think about that Agenda 21 video I sent you?
Well, as I'm traveling down the road, you can see Agenda 21 everywhere. Really? The fact that I-5 is a highway, that was made a while ago, but it's an Agenda 21 highway because it gets all the traffic to go on it, and it's easy to control.
Oh.
Because it's not because you have to exit, if they decided to block exits, whatever else. And I've seen, in Portland, is that a major Agenda 21? I had to kind of sort of go through it in order to get on the 84, so off the 5. Because my uncle lives kind of outside of Portland. So, but yeah, I had to kind of go through it. And let me just tell you about the homeless, too. Holy cow. So so I was totally shocked. Because Reno, where I'm at, and last winter I dealt with the homeless. You know, I helped Food Not Bombs produce meals every Monday night for like 100 homeless people. And hot drinks and stuff like that for the winter. And we got them all kinds of stuff, whatever my clients and people would donate, you know, whether it was sleeping bags and, you know, whatever else, clothing. You know, I worked my butt off last winter to make sure people were the best that we could get them. Anyway, I had old ladies even knitting hats.
Aww.
I know. So, but coming through Portland, I was super shocked. I mean, there's a lot of people with backpacks and stuff like that. I mean, even just walking down I-5 too, you see people kind of foot walking to the next town. And so it's interesting because, you know, parts of Oregon are we're way worse financial shape than Reno, even though we're in pretty bad financial shape because of the level of homeless. But Reno was in the New York Times like 4 months ago as having the largest homeless population per capita, and we only have like 475,000 people maybe in Washoe County. I mean, so that's pretty extreme. So, but when I was coming through Portland, so you come through some of these smaller towns, you know, in Oregon, and there's a lot of people who look really rough all over. But then you drop into Portland, especially along the highways, and you're just like shocked, like your jaw just hit the ground. And on the side of all the highways and under all the bridges and stuff, there's major tent cities. I mean, like major. There's this one area where the medium, between the, you know, in the road, the medium, the center divider, it's pretty wide and flat. There's tents on that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was just kind of like, I almost got in several wrecks trying to get over these bridges in Portland to get to the other side because I kept gawking. You know, I would go, oh my God, look at that. Like, it's just incredible. So I think Portland has the same issues that San Francisco is facing. And they probably have the same amount, if not more, of human, you know, feces and waste all over. And I know that we're having the same thing. I had a friend that was a doctor who had, you know, done a lot of their medical stuff in India and would have to go out to these areas because they would have, you know, in these little villages, because they would have, oh, there goes the cat again. It tried to do a gymnastic maneuver and it went down. Anyway, this cat was cracking me up. Anyway, so anyway, the cat got me off track.
India homeless.
And they have cholera outbreaks, and they're pretty dangerous. And cholera is super contagious.
Right.
And a lot of it happens with dead people, bodies, and also fecal matter. You know, people taking turds and then people drinking the water and, you know, stuff like that. And so she saw like how bad the homeless population was along the river there in Reno, and she freaked out. She asked me to take her over there so she could walk on the bike path along the river just to really give it a good look, because she felt like, you know, she may get hurt or something. So I, you know, walked with her down there, and we took sticks and, you know, and just made sure we were safe or whatever. And she was shocked, and she got on the phone and started calling the governor of Nevada and the mayors of Reno and Sparks, and was like, do you have any idea? There's no place for these people to poop and pee. They're doing it on the river bike path, right on the river. You know, you got like 3,000 people that are homeless there. You know, they're taking a crap in the public water, which is the river, you know, right in town. And they were just like, I remember she called me and she said she was really shocked because I forget, it was like the Reno mayor or the Sparks mayor or something like that, basically told her over the phone that, you know, at this point in time, they weren't going to do anything about the homeless. There was nothing they could do about it. They had nowhere to put them, and that they weren't going to buy, you know, or pay for outhouses. I mean, because she was like, all you'd have to do is put a few outhouses that have like a water fresh water pump, where they can wash their hands and stuff like that. And she said you could cut down on all the disease down there. And they're cheap. So she looked into getting 4 for this one stretch, and it would have only been like $130 a month.
Jeez.
And I mean, that they were the state and the cities were unwilling to pay for it, but the mayor basically told her that, like they weren't going to do anything about it, blah, 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 blah. And they weren't willing to put dumpsters down there so the homeless could throw away their garbage. And they just weren't willing to do anything. And then he told her, he said, and don't bother going to like the news stations because it's one of those things that's not, they're not going to report on. No matter who calls them and talks to them about the homeless population, they're not going to report on it on the TV. And so he was kind of like threatening her by saying, like,
right.
We don't care you're a doctor. We don't care. We don't care that, this is life-threatening to the whole population. And think about it, if that's where the main water thing is for the whole population of Reno and Sparks, and then down the road, and how fast you can infect people in their houses through the sink water. It's pretty shocking that these people are treating, I mean, Reno and Sparks are like, we're like a third world country, basically.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. So thank God nothing really bad's happened. I mean, there hasn't been any major outbreaks, but...
Yeah, but you haven't heard. They might not even tell anybody.
Well, that's the thing. So a lot of the big, casinos, I mean, having been in the medical sort of, on the edge of medical, but totally alternative medicine practitioner.
Right.
We would get tons of different things that they would hide and conceal, like, types of hepatitis. Because hepatitis is highly contagious, and like the A and B varieties, but you can get them from the buffets if they don't sterilize the glasses enough, and things like that. So, I mean, for a long time, they would report, but it hasn't been in like the last 15 years, but they would have like 300 people that stayed at one of the hotels over the weekend, and they all have like hepatitis, and it was from the buffet. Or, the glasses in the buffet. And so there's so many places that you could go. Yeah, and the vectors, there's like, what do they call it? The, disease vectors, different types of areas and things like that. Just create more disease vectors.
Right.
Vector of disease.
Well, like that started when they started spritzing vegetables in the grocery store, and all Legionnaire's disease popped up because there was maintenance to the system. Out. Hmm?
Yeah, so actually, the Japanese, historically, are the ones that first created biological warfare.
Oh.
And they were Japanese, fighters were just so tough that if somebody had like smallpox or whatever else or something and they died from it, as soon as the bodies were fresh, they would be launching them over walls, into villages, to expose the people.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, so they were the first ones to actually use, in our history, biological weapons. But a lot of that people don't know. And there's this whole thing on Netflix, the Rajneesh guy, that then went on to call himself Osho.
Right.
And that guy and all his followers, were in Oregon, and they were having problems with the state of Oregon because they were arming themselves like a compound, and the government didn't really understand them. And then, Rajneesh guy was driving around in limos, with black tinted windows around the small town. I think the town, there were only like 800 original residents, when this whole movement moved into Oregon from this guru.
Right.
Anyway, and then they were involved. He was involved, their guru. Their followers made biological weapons. I think it was salmonella was one of them. But they would also then leave the compound in hand with these, viral agents. And they were going around the town and actually putting these agents on the salad bars.
Oh, my God.
We were trying to kill the residents of this Oregon town. and like do some kind of government overthrow of the state of Oregon. And I mean, and it's so bizarre because, you know, I'll see people who are supposedly spiritual who post Osho stuff and his quotes and all this other stuff. Well, after they found out, you know, where this biological weapon was coming from on these salad bars, you know, they went into the compound and they arrested Rajneesh. I think that's what his name was, or his original name, or something like that. And then they actually deported him on the plane immediately, forced him out of the country. So wherever he landed, I mean, you know, this was on his record forever, you know, that his followers and look, most likely him, were involved in figuring out ways to overthrow like the local government and stuff like that, and using biological, you know, weapons on the population. Wow. And so to this day, people follow that guy, but he changed his name to Osho, I think, Osho. But I mean, that guy was like one of those people, 3,000 people in that compound or whatever, you know, I don't know how many there were, but I mean, those people were going to try to overthrow. I mean, are you kidding me? And then that's not a spiritual guy. And then what? Then he changes his name, and then he gets all these other followers and new compounds and other places, you know, after he's forced out of the U.S., and they all make it like it's okay, you know? Oh, it's okay. That was him in the past.
Oh, well, money talk.
Well, and that's the thing, is a lot of these people, they don't really study or really look at, you know, the person that they're studying with,
right?
Spiritually. And sometimes you really should, you know, have a good look at them and see what they were involved with before, kind of a thing, before you actually blindly follow them.
Right. Gee, that sounds like a marriage, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, seriously. Yeah. But anyway, so let's see what else. Well, you know, a lot of those cults, you know, it's either about getting poisoned, drinking the Kool-Aid, biological weapons, armed, you know, moving away from, you know, society. I mean, there's some key themes there that kind of follow a lot of those communities.
Yeah, I'm not into group sessions of those natures at all.
Well, I'm a terrible worshiper. You know, I'm not very good at worshiping anything. So
yeah, me neither.
I usually get kicked out because I'm not good at it. Like, worship, yeah, probably not going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, you have to bow down and say this many times and all. And like, what? No way, Jose. I do not.
Yeah, well, even royalty, think about it. I mean, you know, they're expected, even to this day, to be able to put their ring out, and the Vatican put their ring out, and you need to bend over and kiss it. I mean, that stuff's still going on today.
That's disgusting.
It is.
I mean,
it is, and people really need to think about what they're involved in. I mean, you know, like, there's one thing about surrender, but there's a whole other thing about, you know, bending over and, you know, submitting, you know, your power.
Yeah, that's why I never say namaste.
Yeah, well, the amen is bad too, because it's
right.
Yeah, because there was a Egyptian god. What was his name? Amen or something like that. Anyway, that's part of his worship, is the amen. If you say it after prayer and stuff like that, you're basically, you know, bringing him into it.
Or canceling the prayer, yeah.
Yeah, amen, something like that. But, you know, it translates to amen in English or something like that.
Yeah.
Another spell. Oh my God.
I know, right? But yeah. Inky's okay, right?
Yeah, Inky the cat, she's okay. And she's given up now. 2 attempts of trying to get in the van. And now she's in a chair staring directly at us through the window. Probably waiting for us to exit the van back into the house so she can get us. I tell people I have like this, you know, I work on animals too, and, you know, like I do hand adjustments on horses and the whole 9 yards, and use essential oils on them and acupuncture and whatever else animals need.
listen to Revolution Radio
I have this thing I tell people about animals, and like I'll just even animals that don't like other people, they like follow me around and want to touch me, and I have like a weird, I have like a weird animal thing, probably like the Pied Piper, and they just sense me and start following me.
All right, sounds like we're at the last break.
Just what is this
Be
truth
right
jihad
back.
thing anyway? Well,
I know,
everybody
right?
knows what truth is.
Be right
But jihad
back.
is a misunderstood term. Jihad means effort or struggle. The greater jihad is the struggle to be a better person, while the lesser jihad is the struggle to defend the community. Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, did say that the best jihad is a word of truth flung in the face of a tyrant. And that's what we do here at Truth Jihad Radio. Every Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, 5 to 7 Pacific, right here on Revolution Radio.
Alert, listen up now. Tune into Crypto Corner with Crypto 0XE05173. We talk about decentralization and bank annihilation. Bitcoin, Litecoin, MyCoin, Yourcoin, blockchain, baby. Mondays at 1600 hours Eastern, Studio A.
Find some comfort at Willow's World. A variety of news, commentary and poetry at Willow's Poetry Corner, where there are comfy cushions and a tempting selection of delectable comestibles. A show that's quirkily and quintessentially British, with a unique twist featuring Willow Andreasen, your host. Join Willow Mondays and Thursdays 2 till 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Studio A.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Okay, unmute. I'm back. That's funny. Oh, gosh. But I wasn't here. I went outside, so I had to come back in. I get a walkout or workout every day going back and forth. Oh, anyway. Yeah, we seem to not be noticing. You're giving me a whole lot of heads up I didn't even recognize were out there. So what else was interesting on your travels that you found?
Well, it's actually been pretty mellow. But also there's also been this, okay, so in shamanism, we'll talk about this, because if people kind of start to recognize this, they'll really start to be able to recognize that things are happening over and over and over again. They may have a different look, it may seem like a different event, a different face on the person, different players, but it always can be the same. You just have to pay attention. So one of the things that have been coming up a lot that I've been talking to a lot of different people about is this whole looping. And people, if they can go back to, I did some TV a long time ago, and it's on my YouTube channel. If you go all the way back, I've got some interviews with people. I had a show on the Project Camelot TV network when Carrie Cassidy tried to get that up and going. I had a show on the CCN network online. I think I had a show on the Spiral network, one show. But, the thing is, like, I don't... yeah, that's a whole other thing. But they were all like TV interviews with different people. So you can go back to my YouTube channel. It's Consciousness of Economics and Urban Farm Project. If you go way back to my original videos, they're uploaded. But I did 2 interviews with somebody who was just mind-blowing, which was Lujan Matus. And he's an amazing vibrational, like being, a Nagual, a true Nagual, right, and shaman or sorcerer, and he's just unbelievable. But I did 2 shows with him, and one of the things he talks a lot about in his books and stuff is the looping, So how the looping affects me, how I've noticed that it affects me. So recently there's been quite a few conversations with different people just about looping, because sometimes people don't know what it could be unless somebody actually talks about it in their own experience. So for example, and I'll just tell the story, when I was in Taos, New Mexico, I was living up in this really rustic cabin, that barely had electricity, mostly just lights, had no Wi-Fi. You could get no cell phone reception up there. It was like 8,500 feet, and it was in the Angel Fire Canyon, which was ski resorts were up there. And then if you continued all the way up, then it was called the Eagle's Nest, where the mountain flattened out this town. And so I lived up there. Like I said, it was pretty rustic, the property. I couldn't get my car up the 3-tiered driveway because it was pretty rough. Barely 4-wheel drives could make it all the way. So I had a sled in the summer, whether it was dry out or wet. And I'd load everything out of my car on the sled, and I'd drag the sled up to this cabin. But that was a whole other, reality there. So it had an outhouse. And then, it did have kind of sort of a shower. And then it had 2 wood stoves for heat. Had a big one in the living room area, and everything was stone and old, log house. It was like a really old one from like the late 1800s. I'm in pretty good shape. And then it had an entryway area that had passive solar that had been built on later. So it had windows to the south-facing area. So if you open the main door into the living room, you could get heat in the morning and the day. But then if you shut the main door, it had a bear locking thing on it. And then there was 2 side doors on each side of the passive entry solar area. And they were bear doors because, we got bear up there that tried to break in, even if you were in there. So there, you had to have like bear-proof doors. So it was a pretty rustic place. So
right.
Taos is a place that has a lot of those areas up there. There's ancient energy up there. I mean, I'm talking like ancient indigenous medicines and energies and things like that. And so it has its own features that sometimes are difficult for people that live in those areas, like myself. But so weird things happen all the time. So I was in town, I was having lunch, and this girl started talking to me who was backpacking, and she just came from the Hopi Nation and stuff like that. And she was having a court hearing. This was like Saturday, and she had like a court hearing on like a Tuesday or something. And she was trying to find a place to stay because it was still snowing. We were still kind of in the winter. And so there was a Buddhist place that I could take her. And then I decided, well, you can stay up at my cabin. It's super rustic, blah, blah, blah. There's no reception or anything, but it'll be warm and safe for you for a couple days. So I ended up taking her up there. And this is my first experience with a black-eyed adult. So people can go and look up what black-eyed kids are. Because there was a level...
Girlfriend. Go ahead.
There was a level of hypnosis that went along with this interaction with this person that was kind of bizarre. But anyway, so she stayed at my place. I put her downstairs on the futon by the, wood stove in the living room. And then I had a spiral staircase that went up in a loft where I slept. And like about 2:00 in the morning, I hear, it's pitch black, and I hear her going, Rachel. Rachel, like screaming Rachel. And I woke up and I'm thinking, what the fuck, Rachel? So I flip on the light up on the loft and I look down over the rail and she comes up the stairwell. And she said, oh, I'm just scared or whatever, And she said, can I lay here on the floor by your bed? And I said, well, do whatever you need to do. And I said, maybe she get a blanket or something. And she's like, no, I'm fine. So she lays on the floor. So I turn off the light and I'm laying there in the bed. And it was like something grabbed me by the back of my hair and lifted me straight up standing on the bed. And I flipped on the light. And there she was standing there with a knife and a screwdriver.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Anyway, this battle ensued. And then, they always say, like, there's this weird stuff if you end up physically touching some of these, black-eyed beings. And so, anyway, I ended up having to kick her out of the cabin and lock it because of what she was doing. I was like, basically, like, you're going to get your stuff and you're going to get out. And then it was trying to manipulate me. Well, I'm going to tell everybody, in town, that you're just a really bad person, all this other stuff. I'm like, I'm a bad person. You're the one that had a knife in one hand and a screwdriver in the other, and we're going to murder me in my bed, kind of a thing. So anyway, got her out and had snowed like 3 feet. And then the neighbor's dog, I could hear, picked her up and was chasing her off. And it was interesting how the dog barked at her, So, after all this stuff happened, I started to realize, like, she was not human, that I'm pretty sure she was, a black-eyed adult kind of a thing. Anyway, so here comes the looping part of the situation. So I don't know, like 4 or 5 years later, maybe, let's say, yeah, like 2013. So this would have happened maybe like in 2007. So 2013, I'm in Reno. I'm living in a 3-level condo building. The condo I'm living in is 1 floor and one unit, but it's a 3-story. My bedroom is like right near kind of the alleyway, and kind of a thing. And in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I hear this screaming going on, and this man is screaming, Rachel, you effing, come out here right now. And I mean, I sat right up because I'm thinking, Rachel, here we go again. Like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
Rachel, And then I realized it had a lot of different other components. Number one, there was somebody downstairs and I was upstairs, just like at the loft. Somebody downstairs was screaming, Rachel. The person was violent. They actually had a gun and bullets, and they were breaking the windows to the downstairs unit to get at the, I guess, person whose name was Rachel in there. Must have been a bad drug deal gone south.
Or something, yeah.
And, I mean, just like how the whole thing, like, played out. There was a lot of more similarities, violence, weapons. The person was down below. The word name Rachel. I was up above. I could look down out the window, just like the railing. I could look down. It was in the winter time. There was just like all these different similarities. And, when I started working with some of Lujan Matus's work and his books, so when I had him on the show, we started talking to him about looping. And that's my experience and how kind of I understand looping is like, if you're not paying attention, you're out of it or you're checked out, you're not going to notice similarities. And it may be, more similarities than not, but it doesn't really look exactly like the situation that happened before. And so if you can start nipping some of these looping situations in the butt, as they kind of happen. And I think that there was a degree, I don't know if I want to call it magic or
just
whatever. Well, yeah, but I think there's a level of duty, from the first looping event, especially if it was a really traumatic one, and how they replay, with like different faces. It looks sort of like different events, but they're very similar. And so these events will always cause like some kind of level of trauma because the initial trauma that was created when it was made. So it's like kind of like, how mind control works through trauma. Right. So you keep looping these things into your life over and over and over again, the same things, but they may seem different so that you don't notice.
Exactly.
To be like, oh, well, this is different because now I'm living in Oregon. But no, it has some of the same things. There's like same words being used, some parts of the event.
He had black eyes?
Well, that's the thing is like, I don't think she ever really looked up at me so that I could see her eyes.
Well, that's a thought.
So, yeah, and they say that the black-eyed, adults are a lot smarter kind of a thing, because they've been here for a while, and so they're a little more savvy. With how they, are in contact with us and stuff. So, I mean, they're like this is the thing, is they remind me, black-eyed kids and adults, they remind me of rattlesnakes, except for the little ones are a lot more poisonous.
Right.
And dangerous, can kill people. Where the older ones have learned how to be more subdued and not, direct their energy so directly, so that they can get whatever they need long term. Kind of a deal.
What a thought.
Yeah.
But that is something that you don't hear a lot about.
Well, and the first one, so David Weatherly, he's one of my Facebook. I heard it from him because he wrote a book, I think, called The Black-Eyed Kids or something like that. And so I started listening to a lot of his interviews and stuff. And I think the first documented one that he found was like the 1940s.
Oh.
And so they've been around for a long time. And that's the other thing, too, about a lot of these New Age people and this whole ascension and all this other stuff. They don't really realize, like, this is not new.
Right.
Because the Bible at one time was the essential manual for those people. And Jesus was the person who was going to ascend them or rapture them. Back then it was called rapture, when people still believe in the rapture. And then now New Age people have adopted ascension, but they're still looking for something else to save them,
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so, but a lot of these ideas and theories and philosophies and all these other things have been around for a super long time, like, the black-eyed kids and shadow beings and, all these things that Sasquatches and werewolves and, all these things. And there are vampires. I mean, I have a story on my YouTube channel about the first actual real vampire, that I came across. And I was shocked that she had a day job,
Well, yeah, right. By all the programming you've been programmed to think that they should be like.
Yeah, that they should fly around and, drink people's blood at night, kill people in parking lots or whatever. Or, the other one, the mainstream one is, well, energy vampires. Okay, well, let me tell you, these things are nothing like those. That whole concept. I mean, they do feed off blood and they do, make contracts with people and utilize their energy fields for things. So people can go to Consciousness of Economics, an urban farm project on YouTube, and I think it's way down on my videos that I've made, but I think it's called like a story of a real vampire or a real vampire story or something where I talk about it.
Yeah, well, they switched all that YouTube stuff up. It's not like it used to be where you could go to the very beginning and work your way back. They've made changes.
Yeah, so you just kind of have to look for it, but it's and the thing is, like, my whole life, I think maybe like one of the things I was thinking about the other day is a lot of these beings don't really shock me. I mean, some of them do. I get surprised by some of them when I run across them, but I grew up in two families, and one was, I could hear him when I was in the tent when I was a little kid fishing and hunting and stuff, and my grandmothers, would talk about Bigfoots and extraterrestrials and, all these things that were here, as if they're like real. So I grew up kind of thinking that they were real, and then learned, when I was in school, that they weren't real. They were a myth. Well, and then, coming to find out that they're real again, you know what I mean? And periodically I run into them, or I get them as clients. Sometimes when they need, I've worked on reptilian hybrids before that knew that I knew that they were hybrids. I could see where, their tails had been removed on their bodies, and, but I worked on them just like anybody else, and they told me things.
Not just one set kind that's out to get humans, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a majority of whatever's going on here could really give a shit about humans. Humans are just a byproduct of this planet.
Right.
And, a lot of them that come here are doing more scientific, stuff, like getting biological materials from here, whether they're human or animal or plants, or mushrooms, and they do research on them here, and then they take them and take them to their planets, you know what I mean? Especially if their planets have had some major stuff that's happened to them, right? And the planets need to be like re-terraformed. So I think a lot of that is going on, and then there's, the few that are fighting each other, the different beings, but most of them, they don't, I mean, like, say some more, I mean, the Hopi talk about the ant people, tall ants that were actually ants, that when the flood came, took them underground and taught them how to live and grow food and everything. And then, would give them like a time date and how to keep time so that they knew when it was time to come out, when the earth would be okay, kind of a thing. So and then there's, been people that have reported like, 6-foot beetles walking on their hind legs down in South America who are collecting, plant material and stuff like that. And then there's the few that are, fighting. I think they're more fighting for the planet. And then you have ones that are attached to the biological material here that threaten, the ones that want to have the planet threaten the biological ones and say, well, we'll just nuke the whole planet and nothing will be there. And they're going, but all the biological material. And then you have some that come here and harvest people and eat them. And we have some that live on this planet that eat people. We could call them satanic, but they're actually, we're like a cattle to them.
Free range.
Yeah. And I believe, recently I've been really thinking about this, but, I'm pretty sure that, right about, I'd have to go back and look at the exact dates, but I'm pretty sure that cattle mutilation started probably right after Roe versus Wade. And remember, like, the ETs they impregnate people, right? And a lot of them, the ones that are taking material, take eggs and sperm, and some of them are making human alien hybrids. And so they were using our womb because there's some kind of process. And I think it was the same with the Anunnaki, when the Anunnaki were creating, Anunnaki human hybrids, right? Kind of a thing. But there's something, you can't just grow them in a petri dish or a tube. In order for the more human component, there has to be, like, I think in order for it to work well, it has to be in a womb. I don't know, maybe like 12 weeks. It has to start out there, even if it's implanted in there. But I'm pretty sure that the cattle mutilations started after Roe versus Wade, when women could start legally getting abortions. So I always tell people, like, why do they want to end abortions? In America, why do they want to take away Roe versus Wade, which is like a big thing on the plate right now? Because they're trying to create a whole Supreme Court that will, get rid of Roe versus Wade rights. So that, I'm starting to realize, like, how all this extraterrestrial stuff plays into, like, what our governments are doing and the decisions that they're making. Because then then they don't have to go to the cattle and implant all these human hybrid embryos anymore, because that's what they put in the cattle. And then they carry them, you know, like halfway, and then they take them out, because they take like all of those parts. They take the tongue, they take the whole uterus, they take all that stuff, surgically remove it perfectly, and then they put it, you know, in tubes up in the ships until the hybrids develop all the way.
Oh my God!
So I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they use cows for that now, because a lot more women get abortions as soon as they know that they're pregnant. So they can't get away with, you know, the woman not knowing that she's pregnant, and then, you know, letting it incubate in her womb for a period of time, and then, you know, abducting her and removing it.
Yeah, but there's a lot of surrogates that are out there that don't mind doing it, I guess. No, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, not something that and you know, the thing is that really should make people mad is that they don't really give people choice about it, because, you know, if they do abduct you, they restrain you and take whatever samples they want. So
supposedly what the white government did to the natives on their reservations, that shouldn't be they should have their own land back, not some place that the government has done it. And they sterilized them, and just like they even, which one was it for the blacks? Some disease. They were the test subjects, you know? I mean, they did.
Yeah. I think it was syphilis, wasn't it? Or something like that.
It possibly.
They gave them.
I mean, I seriously don't have a clue at this moment, but I know that it was done. And I don't put it past our government to do any kind of thing. Just like you said about the E. coli in the river and that. Why wouldn't they spend $150? Creeps.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the whole thing is crazy. And the thing is like, you're not, you know, what you need to know is not going to be out in the open, and you're going to have to do some digging. You're going to have to do some of your own research, and you're going to, you know, have to put your thinking cap on and actually, you know, start to think about
the future.
And what you're thinking, you know. So I'll leave people with this, because I think we just have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, go ahead.
Recently, so I always follow the native way and the red road, you know. So always we want to make it better for the 7 generations ahead of us, right? That's always what a lot of my native teachers talk about. Like, we have decisions we make today, we have to play it forward for 7 generations in the future. And for some reason in my mind, I always got maybe like 80 years or 100 years would be each generation, right? So 7 generations would be like 700 years. Well, one of my native friends, about a month ago, we were talking about it, and she said, well, you know how long the generations are, don't you? And I said, well, no. And they're like, well, each generation, you know, to the native people is like 500 years, because back then, way long when these agreements were made, you know, people lived to be 500 years old.
Right.
So a generation would be like 500 years. So 7 years is 3,500 years. So when we're standing here, we have to really like think about our choices. Throwing garbage, you know, away in a garbage can that goes into, you know, somewhere in the ground.
Right.
That, you know, may not biodegrade. A plastic bag may not biodegrade for 500 years. And then when it does, it puts all this ethanol kind of, you know, polypropylene and all this other really bad stuff into the soil. You know, once it breaks down, now you've got toxicity in the soil. And so how do we, you know, look forward 3,500 years, you know? And so the decisions that I'm making today, so being capitalism and me needing a big house with all this, you know, crud. I mean, I can't even imagine like acrylic nails and stuff like that. That stuff is so toxic. And that stuff goes into the individual person, it's on your body, it goes into the environment. I mean, If you have to get acrylic parts made in the hospital,
the opinions
for your
expressed
spine
on
or
this
something
radio
like that,
station, its
they
programs,
were
and its
massive
website
suits.
by the hosts,
They
guests,
were
and
like
call-in
massive
listeners
suits
or
with
chatters are solely the
respirators and
opinions of the
everything.
original source who
And,
expressed
the
them.
fact
They
that
do
you
not
can just walk
necessarily
in and get your
represent
nails
the
done with
opinions
acrylic
of Revolution
and how
Radio and
poisonous and
FreedomSlips.com,
toxic it is,
its
and people
staff,
are
or
allowed to do
affiliates.
that.
You're listening to Revolution Radio,
It shows you, like, how little that
100%
they really care about us
listener-supported
and how
radio,
important
and
it is for
now
us
we
to start
return
making
you to
decisions about how we're going to walk this world and live in this world, and better try to make it better for the next 3,500 years, whether I'm here or not.
Well, thank you, Bridgette. I'm glad you joined me today. It was great.
Yeah. All right, girl.
Okay,
have a great
don't
day.
forget Bridgette's on Studio 8 tomorrow at 3 to 5, right?
I can't think. 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Is it 1 p.m. to 3? Okay, so check out Bridgette's show. Thank you.
Bye.
Guys. Later.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70